Welcome, everyone. I am Shishir Mishra. I am an author and a marketing consultant. I help businesses grow, and I'm again back with a fireside chat with a fellow BEP author. And today with me, I have Scott Gilbert. He's the author of the book Business Liability and Economic Damages. He's an economist, and he will be sharing some great actionable insights on his book as well as some of the insights on the industry. So, welcome, Scott. Happy to have you here in this fireside discussion.
Thank you, Shishir, and I'm delighted to be here as well.
So, as we begin, just a moment, I would like you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Strategy Ninja. On this channel, you will find some actionable insights from experts around the globe, such as Scott. I have another video that was with Shane Brett that is very interesting. You can check out the video on my YouTube channel, and you can like, comment, and share that one as well. So subscribe to my channel, and you will find very important insights related to the pandemic, how the industry and how different uh, uh, experts are strategizing their response to this situations. So coming back to the book, the Business Liability and Economic Damages, uh, Scott Gilbert is an economist who has received his bachelor's degree from University of California Berkeley. After graduating, he worked as a research associate at the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, and then he completed his PhD degree in economics from University of California, San Diego. He is currently an associate professor and director of undergraduate studies at Southern Illinois University and a consulting economist at Gilbert Economics LLC. This is the second edition of his book, Business Liability and Economic Damages. It is selected by Harvard Business Publishing to be added to their education website. And if I'm not wrong, his first edition of the book was also selected by Harvard Business Publishing. So that's a very interesting profile, Scott, and I am very much excited to know what you have covered in your book. So if anyone who wants to connect with Scott, here are the details. You can connect with Scott through his website, that is www.gilberteconomics.com, or you can drop Scott an email through scott at gilberteconomics.com, or even you can contact him directly through his work phone that is listed here. So to begin with, Scott, I would like to know what was the motivation behind writing this book?
Well, Shishir, I had, in addition to being an economics professor, so teaching economics classes, doing research, I began about 10 years ago to do some consulting work, kind of a more regular basis. For after about 5 years of some of that experience, I realized I was doing this consulting work, preparing reports and opinions on different economic issues in court cases, but I didn't really see a book out there that explained the issues of liability, business liability, and damages in a context where maybe an economics teacher might have tried to explain those to maybe an ordinary person or to a business owner or a lawyer. So I wanted to write a book for people that were not technical consultant experts, but rather just sort of ordinary folks with a bit of business background, perhaps, that wanted to understand more about business liability and economic damages.
So, in that case, ideally, who should read your book? Who would be most benefited by your book?
Uh, Businesses always face certain amounts of liability, certainly in the US or other countries where businesses can be at fault for a variety of risks and bad outcomes with others, those that are easy to predict and those that are not. So businesses certainly should prepare for outcomes that are unfortunate and where they are found liable. So I believe that a business to prepare well could pick up a book like this one and get some additional economic insight and look at the kind of economic principles and tools that are actually used in determining damages calculations in court cases. I think businesses would be benefited from looking ahead at the liability issues they face and doing a bit of more homework. I think they could benefit from such a read. And attorneys, some attorneys do quite a bit of work that is in the area of litigation with economic damages, but not all. And I think those attorneys that are less familiar with economics and as it plays a role in damage calculations could also benefit quite a lot. And then kind of the general reader who likes economics and is interested in how economics gets applied in the courtroom, I think they too will find it an interesting read, or at least I hope so.
That's great. So, could you give me one example in the current scenario of any economic damages that you have seen has impacted any business, and where, like, what were your learnings in terms of how that due to this pandemic, what was the situation exaggerated, or what was the impact?
Well, Shishir, thank you. A very good question. And I do have a variety of different kinds of cases. Some are personal injury. So a person gets hit by another car, and then the person that gets hit is injured to an extent that they can no longer do, say, their construction job. And so they have lost a lifetime or, the rest of their work life of earnings. So those kinds of cases, probably the outcomes now in our COVID times in terms of how the legal process works and the kinds of damage calculations that will be associated with those cases, not necessarily so different, except that we have reduced driving now for many Americans, more commuting. So I would say that perhaps personal injury cases with car accidents, which are so common, are probably a bit less right now than they would have been before. On the other hand, I and my fellow experts are talking a lot about what about the damage, the business's liability for COVID type damages. You get sick because a business didn't do enough to protect perhaps some of the shoppers, or maybe some of the business did something that was too restrictive and some shoppers felt overly constrained. Is the business liable for doing too much? So we talk a lot about that, and that is, I think, evolving. I've not yet seen a case where there's been a business sued specifically for the COVID issue, but we feel probably coming soon to some degree.
Oh, okay. That's like, so I would want to know if someone is starting up his own business or he's planning to launch his own business. So when the business owner or the founder should start thinking about business liability and economic damages, what do you suggest? Like, how a business owner should plan for this?
I think at the point where they start realizing that insurance is probably a good idea, they should also ask themselves, what does the insurance do for them? What is the underlying principle? And it is essentially usually to protect them or cover them to an extent for their liability to others. So we have insurance in there. Many business owners are not aware that sometimes insurance is not enough. Sometimes the coverage will not be enough. Sometimes insurers will decline to pay in situations where the business owner thought they were going to pay. So I think realizing that insurance and buying that policy for the business owner is not necessarily enough in terms of preparing. They should realize there's a whole court process and that many claims, liability claims, go beyond an insurance policy and into the court system. And when they're thinking of what insurance to get, to consider carefully what sorts of liability do they have to their customers when they walk into the store, to their employees in terms of the bad outcomes that could be associated with their employees, to another business. Are they in a business to business relationship with another business, a contract of some sort? All of those situations can generate bad outcomes for the other participants and liability. And so thinking those through carefully and then considering what kind of insurance do I need, and then the additional perhaps legal outcomes that could happen along the way, I think would be great. So earlier on, at the earliest, considering the sources of liability would be a good time also to consider, the things I talk about in my book.
No. Okay. So I think a reader would find a lot of things they can like implement through your book in terms of mitigating the risk related to economic damages as well.
Yes, I have a section that will kind of cover insurance and what it should essentially do for you, and also then kind of the beyond the insurance step is what happens when somebody for whatever reason is negatively affected by your business. The insurance claim comes, but then there's this whole legal process as somebody asks, for example, person is injured by your delivery truck driver. That person, your insurance limit may be up to $1 million perhaps to cover for that person's physical injuries. But if they lose their job for the rest of their lives and the present value of their income is $3.2 million, that's a situation where the insurance was understanding it was not enough, and where knowing a bit about this legal process and the economic principles in damage calculations can be helpful.
That's interesting, and I think that is very helpful for a business owner to consider when they start off with their business, when they start off formulating a team, when they start off their operations. So I think that is very much important to plan for, to mitigate all the risk involved. So you are an economist, so I would want to know where do you see the economy, the global economy is heading post this coronavirus pandemic and the lockdown, which has like slowed down economic activity throughout the world. So where are we heading in your perspective at the moment?
Oh, another wonderful question, Shishir. But of course, a very pressing and troubling problem that we face. Fortunately, in the U.S., since March, April, unemployment rates having shot up over 10%, we are and in fact, over 20% at one point. We are fortunate that the unemployment rate has come down to set perhaps close to 7%. That's one sign of improvement, and many sectors of the economy seem to be recovering, but we seem to feel pretty confident that some parts of the economy and how they operate may have fundamentally changed. So some service sectors, including retail, TV, movies, and restaurants in particular, we all know have been hard hit by the economy. And it's just not clear that people are going to go right back and see movies next summer at the theaters, or going to go to the restaurants as much as they had before, perhaps in part because they're used to doing things at home. They can now, for an additional fee, watch some of their blockbuster new movies at home. And they maybe have learned how to cook a bit more than they had before during the COVID times. So anyway, economists believe that, especially in the U.S., where the service sector is so very important in terms of a share of the economy, some shrinkage of that sector is probably here to stay. And we just have to deal with that and figure out how to shift jobs out of those sectors and recover by restructuring the economy in some way.
Okay. So I also agree with you in that terms. Like now, people have stopped going through to the movie theaters. But that has given opportunity to OTT platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime. So there, the business and the consumers are shifting bases to a different platform. But in terms of like hospitality and aviation, where things may never get back to normal anytime soon. So, what do you see? Where will the airlines cut down their employee strength further? They will cut down their operational costs further. What do you project?
Yes, I mean, it's so true, Shishir. And for example, as like an economics academic, like a professor person like myself, I go to conferences and even for my consulting work, those conferences we're doing online now. And I think they'll go back because a lot of people go to conferences to network, so socialize really to a degree. So people want those in-person conferences. But I think they're not going to go away and hotels are not going to disappear. However, some organizations they were struggling to afford to go to national conferences, they may realize the benefits. They can use Zoom and other technologies to get a good conference experience. And I think that's one example of where we will have kind of a downsizing in terms of overall hotel demand, simply because technology has shown us that we can accomplish some of our objectives of in-person meetings from distance meetings. So I think that is, here to stay. And, related, kind of, so I think that's a good example where kind of interesting, the kinds of jobs and aviation too, so both hotels and the airplanes that I fly on to go to my conferences, we're not going to have probably as many flights or as many hotel rooms booked. But whether that's a 10% decline, 20% decline, probably we don't know, but probably it's there. I think the hope is, as we transfer some of those jobs to alternatives, those alternatives will hopefully be reasonably well-paying jobs. If we had instead considered restaurants, well, restaurant workers and movie theater workers tend to be low paid. So the fact that there are fewer of those jobs may not be a concern if we could transfer those workers to something a little bit higher paying in any case. I'm not so sure that's true in aviation. Our pilots and our staff on the airlines and the tech mechanics are all relatively well paid. And so there, I think there may be more of a concern about what are you going to do with these highly trained professionals in our airline aviation industry as they are squeezed out to some degree of their jobs.
So do you think like now we live in a truly globalized economy? Every other country is anywhere doing trade with every other country. So in that case, like, did this lockdown in being a global economy which is interlinked, if has this like the lockdown and the pandemic, has this like negatively impacted the world over the global economy? Or if the different economies were independent and they were like more they were more focused on their consumers within their country or within their neighboring countries, that would have helped. So I would want to know your perspective on this.
Oh, Shishir, I think that being interconnected has had some benefits. Well, we know that our COVID-19 virus is from China originally, which sounds like, oh no, should we have not have been connected to China in this case? Because after all, we got a virus from that part of the world. Well, from a health perspective, there are risks of being internationally connected. But I don't think that shutting out other countries too, even on a health perspective, is going to be the best thing, because long term, we all have different sources of viruses and bacteria. So the economists, the modern economists, most of them are supportive of the Western oriented, let's say, economists like trade to a considerable degree. In our U.S. economy, the demand for things like masks, even just masks alone, to protective masks during our COVID era, a lot of them have been imported from China. We got some from Russia, actually. We didn't know, but they came through Russia, I think, to China, to the US, from Vietnam and other countries. I would say that dealing with the COVID in the US has required manufacture, and not just masks, but other health related goods and services have been required. A lot of those goods, their parts or the goods themselves, have come from abroad. So I believe that while we have to worry about our health issues and the sources of viruses and bacteria, which come from all over the world, I think that on the whole, just from the economic side, the supply side, if you will, our international linkages have been very important and helpful.
That was like very relevant and required at the moment, because like the vaccines that are coming up, and as the economies, as the world have to share this vaccine, so that like everyone, no one is left behind. So that is like I truly find it relevant that the economies should be interconnected with each other in terms of not only economics, but also in terms of health and other areas where maybe the support will be rather increased, because we are facing a common situation. So this is like it is the first time that we are seeing a lockdown, not only in some parts of the world, but almost all parts of the world there was a lockdown.
Yes.
So coming back to your book, Scott, so where can we find your book? Which is the best way to, if someone wants to purchase your book?
It is easy to find. Business Liability and Economic Damages. Amazon, I think, is one of my favorite places to buy books. So you can click and either download the Kindle book if you just want to get a quick read of it. There is a regular paperback copy available on Amazon as well. The publisher, Business Expert Press, also has copies available on their website.
Okay, that's great. And if someone wants to like connect with you to know more about your book, to know more about your expertise, and to kind of a consultation with you, so how can they reach you?
Well, I'm pretty visible on the internet, so if you type Scott Gilbert economist, I'll probably pop up. Or if you're interested in like what I do in the world of consulting, Scott Gilbert economist expert, they'll probably take you also to my website there that has more resources.
That's great. That's great. And I would again share the information related. If you want to directly reach out to Scott, you can either call him, or you can write him an email, or you can directly visit his website, that is gilberteconomics.com. So thanks a lot, Scott. It was a really informative and interesting session. I got a lot of insights, and being like interested in economy, I think a lot of the people who are like who are looking at this with uncertainty, they will get some like crucial insights on what they can what is the future forecast for this.
Well, thank you, Shishir. I'm delighted to be able to chat with you today about the world economy as it is, and then how the ideas I had in my book, which in part were to kind of share more about parts of the economy and the business environment that I think a lot of folks don't really know so much about in terms of economic principles at play. I hope our economic principles will continue to have an important role in guiding our world out of its current COVID crisis.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Have a nice day.
Thanks. You too, Shishir.
Bye.